Hi folks, let me in with Two Guys Ride. Today, Rob and I are here in beautiful Des Moines, Iowa, and we're here at the Concours d'Elegance, and we're here with Mark. Mark, thanks for spending your time with us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You have an unusual car, so tell us what this is.
This is a little bit unusual. It's a 1969 Marcos 3-liter GT.
Okay, so let's talk for a minute about where does Marcos come from? Where is it made? And is it still in production?
The Marcos was a small company in the UK, in the eastern part of the UK. James Marsh and Frank Constein were the two names, so that's how the Marcos came about. They started their company in like 59 or so, and built a few production cars and some race cars. Jackie Stewart raced one of them, and then they moved into this design in the early 60s.
Okay. This is what a design. I mean, if you come from far away, you get fleeting images in your head of Datsun and Nissan just come from that back end. Look, it's very sporty.
Yep, and it's a very elegant design. I call it kind of streamlined. A lot of people think it's a Jaguar from the front end, and then they get a look at the back and they go, no, it's a Ferrari. And they ask me that, and I kind of chuckle and I laugh, and I said, you'll never figure it out unless you go to the front and read the nameplate. So yep.
Now the entire body is fiberglass.
The body shell is fiberglass.
Okay, and there's something really unique about the frame.
Yeah, well, the frame or chassis is all made out of 364 pieces of wood.
364 individual pieces of wood.
Right, and it's spruce and marine plywood.
Okay.
The spruce, both of those are very good with weather, so they don't deteriorate and rot.
Yep.
And then, so everything from the front suspension points backwards, the motor, the differential, the transmission, all hang off the wood chassis.
Okay, man, that's not unusual for that year, but it's fun to run into those now. I tell you what, they had to have. Was one of them into aerodynamics, or what was the deal with all these lines and curves?
Yeah, Frank Constein was the engineer behind it. He actually was worked in the aircraft industry, and he designed the Mustang and the the Mosquito and Spitfire, the fighter planes.
So he had some big experience.
Yeah, and so that's where the wood came into as well, because all of those were wood structure with cloth skins, and so he's the guy, the brains behind that side of it. Yes.
Man. That's what I love this front end here with the big, huge covered front lights, and then your small bumper in the front. But you've got a hole down in the middle, and that's the only intake for air.
That's the only intake for air. So ventilation and air circulation is pretty minimal on the car. I don't drive it during the real hot summer because there's no air movement into the cockpit. And for cooling for the motor and things, I did a couple of mods. I took the original radiator out and went to an electric fan-driven radiator for cooling.
Okay, to cool a little bit better. Yeah,
Yep.
You'd almost have to.
Yep.
But oh man, this is beautiful. Let's step down here a little bit.
Okay.
I love these mirrors on the wings coming down. It's just such a. All right, it's a sexy look, right? It's just a good-looking car.
It's a Sebring style lens or mirror, and that was kind of a thing of theirs. One of the things that's really unique is the seating system in it. The seat is a fixed seat. James Marsh was 6'4", so he wanted a car that he could physically fit in and fit in well, but his market was a lot of people in the 5-foot category. So the seat is fixed; it doesn't move. It's like kind of like a race car seat. So what they did is they engineered and designed that the master cylinders and the throttle assembly is on a trolley system, and you crank a knob on the dash and you move the pedals in and out to adjust for your length.
Oh, that is interesting. So you don't adjust the seat; you just adjust the pedals.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Were these locks for the hood?
Yes, there are little key locks for the hood for security, because otherwise you just you're able to just pop the latches and pull it open and raise it up. But you can secure it if you want with the locks.
Okay. And then Was this an actual opening in the roof?
That is it's called a asbestos roof, and it is actually kind of a sunroof. It has a latch inside that you open, and then it accordions back.
Okay.
accordion up. It would still be shown here, but it would open up a fair amount of the roof.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Little bit more air movement, but not
A little.
lot.
Yeah, not much.
Not much there.
Yep.
Okay. I see your seatbelts actually attach in the rear.
Yes.
And come forward. So are they a harness seatbelt? Or are they just a regular?
It's regular shoulder strap
Okay.
that goes down then to another point there. So it's a kind of a 3-point seat belt.
Okay. Now I like the door handle. And we were talking about this a little earlier, but just a quick pull and push.
Yep.
But you were saying earlier they had a different design.
On the early designs, that this was molded into the fiberglass, and the actual button was in underneath a little covered area of fiberglass. So you just push it. You'd reach in with your finger and push it that way.
So not on some of the new cars we see coming out now, where they got the Mach-E has that same
Right.
sort of a flange here.
Right.
Can't remember where the button is, but same idea.
Yep.
Corvettes have the same thing.
Right.
That's just kind of an idea. Now, I like the handbrake. That's kind of a neat, almost a corkscrew design.
Yep. Yeah, it's a real practical because it lays right beside your leg, and you don't really forget that it's on because when you're seated in there and you put your leg over against it, it hits you in the leg. So you want to retract it and get it out of the way, which is kind of a nice feature.
And then the thing that kind of looks like a speaker on the left of the steering wheel, that's a rotary knob for adjusting the pedals.
Yep, it's right here.
Okay. And then
that'll-
of course
that'll trolley the wheels or the foot pedals in and out.
in and out. And then as far as gauges go, it looks like you've got a speedometer and RPM.
Got a
But then you've got
speedometer.
a slew of gauges up on the top.
Yep, you have oil pressure, you have amp meter, you have fuel gauge. It
All your
monitors.
basics.
Yep, monitors. Yes, you may.
How many?
Just pull. There you go.
What are all the little switches below the dials?
So you have, they have a lot of switches. There are front fog lights, driving lights,
Okay.
one switch. The headlights are on a switch. The fan is on a switch. Now you're testing me. I can't remember all of them. There's a parking light switch. When you actually get that parking light switch on, then you have a switch here for the headlights.
Okay.
And then you have the turn signals are on the other side of the wheel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm assuming it's power windows.
It is power windows. The two power switches
Are in the
ahead
center.
of the gear shift lever. Those two in the console run the windows.
That's probably one of the longest door handle openers I've seen. It looks like half a prop.
Yeah.
Off an airplane. It's like
Yeah.
one half of it, but that is long.
Get a lot of leverage out of that.
Then
Yep.
you got a nicely covered center console area. There's a tunnel there.
Right.
And you certainly dress that up.
And it's actually easy access if you need to do something in the gearbox. You can take the shifter off, and then that whole assembly will come up out as one unit.
And how many gears is the transmission?
It is a 4-speed,
Four-speed.
from the factory, but it has electric overdrive on 3rd and 4th. So
Okay.
essentially, it's a 6-speed.
Okay. Wow. Oh, that is just cool. All right, let's go to the back here for a minute. This has to me, this is one of the most unique parts of the car, just because, you got that nice slant coming down over the hips. But then you got the window, which is a different, so you kind of got this bubble in the middle and then back down. So is it a functional trunk?
It is. It has quite a bit of storage area in it. I'm
Okay.
almost embarrassed to show you, but yeah.
It's okay. You don't have to if you don't want to.
It's got a lot of stuff sitting in it, but it does have a large. The fuel tank sits here.
Okay.
This is the wood part of the wood. The rear end torsion rods are, you can see the bolts down there. That's the torsion rods that hold the rear end in place.
Okay.
The spare tire is down underneath. And jacks in there, and then a big lead hammer to take off the knockoffs.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of storage in it.
That is for any sport, group.
Right.
That's wow.
Right.
That is a lot.
Yep.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the bottom.
Oh,
so,
man.
Yeah, you got plenty of room in it. All the cleanup parts in there.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
you can have whatever you want. The point is,
Right.
it's much more space than
Correct.
I was certainly anticipating. Interesting how they chose to overhang the back where they could have ended it up here, but it's all part of the look.
Well, and it also has a little bit of a tail to it, an upper tail.
I did not see that from my angle.
Yeah,
little ducktail.
so it will actually do some aerodynamics.
Again, back to its builder's origins,
Yep.
with
Yep.
building aircraft.
Correct.
Man, that is a nice look. All right, so obviously, is it true twin exhaust or is it?
It is true twin exhaust all the way from the front.
Okay.
So single pipe off of each header, down through the back, to a resonator and out the tail.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 twin exhaust. This car has wire wheels on it. They made them with mags as well, and some with steel wheels. Wire wheels was an upgrade and an option, and these are the original wire wheels that are on it.
That were on it. Okay.
Yep.
How many different configurations, roughly, like trim levels, could you get this car in?
The interior trim was all pretty much the same. They didn't really modify that, but you could do, like I said, the wheels were an option. There weren't very many. I mean, pretty limited in
Pretty
options.
limited,
Yeah.
okay.
Small company, they didn't have, like today's technology where you got a whole list of options.
Right.
So,
Right. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to take a look at the engine.
sure.
I'll
Happy
hold
to
the
show you.
mic.
Yep. Okay. All right.
All right, boy. So that really fits in there well, doesn't it?
Yes, and this version is, they started this series using a 4-cylinder Ford, a 1500, and then
Okay.
they made a 1600, then they went to an 1800 Volvo 4-cylinder,
Okay.
and then they moved into the Essex V6. This is a V6, a true V6, about 145 or 48 horsepower, 150 or 55 pounds of torque. So it's a pretty, gutty motor for this car.
Then obviously the wood frame underneath is going to add some weight, but
It does.
but you have fiberglass everywhere else. That's got to be pretty fun to drive.
It is. It's a very roadworthy car because you're extremely comfortable in your seat position and the recline, and then you've got plenty of get up and go. It's not
I
it's not
bet
a
you
rocket
do.
ship or anything, but it
But
really
that
runs
size
well.
body and that horsepower,
Yep.
those are some of the funnest cars to drive.
Right.
All
Right.
right. So you said you did 2 modifications. One was the alternator.
One is the alternator. I took the generator off. It's a Lucas Electronics. Everything's Lucas in the car. Generators are a little iffy, but I have it. It's restored. It could go back on. I put an alternator on it just so I wouldn't have to worry about
Okay.
it. The other
And then the
mod that I
radiator?
did, I put an aluminum radiator with an electric fan, and I run the electric fan all the time just to circulate air
Okay.
and keep the airflow better.
But otherwise, this is the engine it would have had.
This is the exact engine it came
And
with.
transmission.
Yep, transmission, all of that standard. Everything in it, the shocks, everything are all back to original
Okay.
equipment.
And the battery it's a 12-volt system.
12-volt system.
Okay.
Mhm.
So,
And typical Lucas, it operates with 2 fuses. So that's
I'm
your.
surprised we don't even see any smoke in the headlights.
Well, now I've been through all the electrics and kind of reconditioned everything. But
All right.
2 fuses.
We're pretty good. We don't see anything coming out of the wires
Yep,
either.
yep.
All right. So Marcos is an unusual car. It's rare.
It is.
Can't say I think this might be the first one I've actually seen.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you want to get, to collect one?
Well, let me answer the rarity question first, real quickly. This car of this footprint with that motor in it, there were about 115 that came off the production line. That was it. 115.
Wow, low production.
And then coming into the States, documented they were a lot of them exported. With this particular, I think there are about 8 on the registry at this point,
Okay.
but several of those are non-running.
Okay.
So there's very few of these around
Wow.
in this footprint. Now, as to your next question, what got me involved in it? So where I started, when I was in high school, Car and Driver, or one of the sports car magazines, had featured this on the front cover.
Okay.
And I saw it on the front cover, and I thought, wow, what a cool car. I read the article, and I thought, man, it'd be neat to own one of those someday. And so, I just, childhood dream, and I kept
Yep.
looking and looking and looking, and I had done a restoration on another car, just finished that, so I was looking for my next project, and I found this advertised for sale, and it was in Coles Harbor in Halifax.
Okay.
And so my son and I, Patrick, we took off and did a road trip and bought it and brought it home.
and came
Yep.
back.
Yep.
Now that leads to my next question. So, how do you get into cars in the first place? Because you actually restore cars.
I do. I've been doing British car restoration since I was a young kid, and the way I got started in cars, my dad This is kind of a funny story. My dad started me when I was doing paper routes. I would go around and see lawnmowers sitting out on the curbs.
Yeah.
I'd gather up the lawnmowers, and then he'd help teach me how to rebuild the motors and how to put them back out and sell them. So that got me started moving with motors.
Okay.
And then I started finding Triumphs, TR3s, and MG midgets and Austin Healey's and different things.
Okay.
And I bought several of those. And before I was through high school, I had bought and sold 7 or 8 of those.
Wow.
And so the bug bit me early.
Yeah.
And, I wasn't doing restoration work at that time. I was just fixing things and putting them down the road. And then as I get older in life, I've done several car restorations, and this is just one of them, one example.
Man, that is really cool. So you have a history in cars. That's pretty deep, and deeper than most because you actually work on them.
Right.
All right. So in regards to this car, though, you've had this for a couple of years at least.
2011.
2011. Okay, so you've had enough time to create some memories.
Mm-hmm.
So what is one of your favorite memories with this car?
Well, let's see. Trying to think where. My most favorite memory goes back through some ownership, and I went down to a National British Car Show at Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Okay.
And I'm in the elevator, and Patrick and I are in the elevator, and in walks a gentleman that I knew. Hadn't met him before, but he's got a big handlebar mustache, and his name is Dennis Gage. He's the guy that does My Classic Car.
Okay.
And I met him, and we got talking, and I said, Dennis, what brings you to the show? Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm here because I heard there was a Marcos here, and I really want to see the Marcos. And I looked at him, and I just kind of smiled. I didn't say anything. And we rode down the elevator and walked out on the show floor, and I went my way to work on the car and prep the car, and he's coming around, and he comes over, and he gets this real funny look on his face, and he said, "You didn't even tell me you owned the Marcos." And I said, well, I didn't want to spoil the surprise, So, yeah, that's one of the classic memories.
And they create so many, don't they?
They do.
It's just awesome.
And you never know what you're going to find. It's just so enjoyable.
It is.
Yeah.
And to hear the stories and the backgrounds,
Right.
like we heard today on this one.
Yep.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for spending your time.
Thank you.
And telling us the story about your car and it's your background in cars. I mean, thanks for preserving this.
Appreciate it very much.
What a great story.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it very much.
And thanks for watching.